Hello and good afternoon. Oh no, I don't know what time it is where you are, so insert whatever time it is and hello. Today I want to talk about cinematic camera movement and how you can achieve that in your travel videos. You probably had that happen. You just got home from your last travel trip, you wanted to edit a cool video, and then you noticed that the footage is quite boring because you're just standing there and filming static shots of whatever is happening. Or maybe you have something that is very action oriented, someone jumping off a cliff, but it's still just someone holding the camera very static and not moving at any way. These kind of static shots are something that make the videos so much more boring than they should be. And there are a couple of ways you can work around that. One way is to actually fake movement afterwards. And I might do a video about that in the future where you can actually keyframe your footage and move inside the frame. However, if you shoot in full HD and you want to export in full HD, you will lose some quality. However, if you, for example, use something like the GoPro in 2.7K or even 4K and you export in maybe full HD, then you actually can do these kind of camera movements with the footage you already got. And with the linear styling modes in the GoPro Hero 5 and the Hero 4 Black, it is actually possible to kind of do this without having this kind of distorted video footage, so it looks quite nice. But the best thing you can do is actually do those cinematic moves while you are on location and actually shooting the stuff. However, I know that is sometimes a struggle, especially if you want to actually move on or maybe don't spend as much time in a certain location. I had that happen a couple times on hikes or climbs. Some people just want to move on and you want to get the really cool shots, and that is a whole different topic on how to convince people you want to actually get some shot, how to actually get a little bit more time to be able to actually achieve the shots you want. But let's stick to the cinematic movement for now, and I want to show you a couple tips and tricks how you can actually get more cinematic movement in your shots with very easy tools. A couple videos ago I actually talked about stabilizers, and I still think you should go for one if you have the funds, even if it's just for your phone or your GoPro, for example. There are very cheap stabilizers at around 300 or maybe even 200 euros and US dollars. You can find those in the description below, and also the video that I made is up here, I think. Those are great, but if you don't have a stabilizer with you, you can also make do with a neck strap, for example, and just attach your camera this way. So you can have it this way, and if you give a little bit of force on this kind of structure, you actually stabilize the camera a lot more than just holding it with your hand, and you can just wiggle in every direction. So if you have a strap like this, and it's probably not ideal for a GoPro, but if you can hold the camera like a normal camera like this, and you can just give a little bit of pressure onto the strap, you can get much smoother shots like this, because this camera is actually kind of limited in movement towards your neck, and you can get much smoother shots instead of just having the camera in your hand by itself. A couple of the moves that you can do to actually get a little more cinematic shots is you can just hold the camera looking down, and then you can pan up and make the camera look up at the same time. So you kind of have this diagonal perspective going from the bottom to actually towards the sky. And if something is happening in front of the camera right there, it is even more interesting. Let's say someone is walking by, looking in other directions, or just exploring the area. This kind of shot can be a very interesting one. Another kind of vlogger or experience kind of move is to actually kind of film your feet first and then pan up as you approach something to kind of give this reveal and this kind of experience driven thing that you kind of explore this and you found something and it's new and exciting and you want to just look at it. This is another very interesting shot you can do. In terms of cinematic shots, you can use a couple of things. Obviously, on a cinematic shoot, probably there are sliders, there are gimbals, there are dollies, you have cranes and all kinds of things. But you can mimic many of these with just walking, maybe with a stabilizer. At least I found that with a stabilizer, I can get many of these shots, but I don't really need the kind of bulky gear that is necessary to normally get those shots. Now, as I mentioned, you already have this kind of pan shot where you can make variations. You can either just pan like this, or you can pan from looking down and then going to look up. The other version to this would be to just try to keep the camera stable and move it from left to right to get kind of a slider shot. As mentioned, these are much better with a stabilizer or with a warp stabilizer in editing later. Another thing you can do is just to kind of take the camera like this and walk towards something, just maybe 2-3 meters. This little bit of movement to walk towards something helps a lot in terms of giving it more perspective instead of just standing in one point and filming something happen. The same thing applies to both things. You have a house or a nice location you want to film, or you just have one person who is doing something or a crowd of people. Just giving more movement to the footage itself and the camera in the shot is so much better than just static shots, and you can do so much more in the edit after with it. Now, I would say get creative with these ideas. Don't just stand somewhere and hold your camera still filming something that is happening. Give it more movement, give it a more of a perspective look, maybe even more immersive by going backwards and filming a complete crowd and then going into the crowd and getting a different shot there. Always just keeping in mind that a camera that is just standing still is something that maybe you want to do for an event reception or something. You want to film the whole event, but you still want to have an additional camera that is actually in the motion and actually taking more interesting shots. If you have more ideas or questions about this, please leave them in the comments below. In the description you will also find a link to my playlist with more videos about this kind of filmmaking and photography stuff. And if this video in any way was interesting or helpful for you, please share it and give it a like. Also subscribe to this channel for more videos like this every day, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, make it your life and enjoy the sun. Bye.